In for Pat Doris tonight. Pat will be back tomorrow for those of you who have emailed us asking. Election day is less than 2 weeks away now, and we have a heavy dose of politics for you tonight with a winter weather outlook to cleanse our palate later on. But with Multnomah County's new ranked choice voting this year, when should you be expecting results? It's our big story tonight. In Portland, there's a whopping 19 people running for mayor. This is a picture of what a sample ballot looks like. This one is for District 2, and depending on where you live, you could have anywhere from 16 to 30 candidates for city council. You're allowed to rank up to 6 of them. You do not need to choose 6, only rank the people you would like to see elected. But once those ballots are in, what's the timeline for next steps and results? We talked with Multnomah County's elections director, Tim Scott, to find out. He says they'll be releasing preliminary results at 8 p.m. on election night, just like always. And he expects that will be a good chunk of the total numbers.
We typically release in that 8 o'clock results report, we are typically releasing 50 to 60% of the total ballots cast for the election. And we don't expect that to change with ranked choice voting. So more than half the ballots, the results for more than half the ballots will be released in that first round of results on election night.
Giving us a good sample of what to see, but not everything. After election day, they'll release results once per day, no later than 6 p.m., he says. Scott says the county is usually able to count more than 90% of the ballots by the Thursday after Election Day. So we'll have a better idea of where things are going throughout the week, but nothing final. Multnomah County will have a website where you can watch how the Portland votes are tabulated and how the results change as votes are transferred under ranked choice voting. Remember, with ranked choice voting, a candidate has to pass a threshold to be declared the winner. For city council, since there will be 3 winners, that threshold is 25% plus 1 vote. In each round, the candidate with the lowest number of first choice votes will be dropped, and their votes move to the voter's second choice, and so on, until 3 people meet the threshold. So here's an example that Multnomah County put up to show how that process will work. This is a fictional District 2 race. You can see there are 24 candidates. In the first round, everyone's first choice picks, Barry Brown, has the most votes, but only 17%. So Barry Brown has not met the threshold. You can click forward to see how the lowest picks are dropped, and everyone who ranked them first has their votes transferred to their second choice. That's in green on the bar chart. It'll start to get a lot bigger as we go. Since there are so many candidates in this race, it'll take a lot of rounds to get to the final 3. By about round 15, around half the candidates have been eliminated, but no one has cleared the 25% plus 1 threshold just yet. That takes until round 21, when Barry Brown gets there. And by round 24, we have 3 who made the cut. Scott says this process will be instantaneous, but they're planning on publishing the data for each round every night as more ballots get counted.
One of our clear priorities in Multnomah County is transparency. We want voters to have all the information that we have when we have it. We don't want to leave anyone in the dark. And so by presenting the results in this way, voters get to see what happens as we are going.
Again, Scott says most of the ballots should be counted by the Thursday after Election Day. The official winners won't be declared until the vote is certified, December 2nd. Some voters in Clallam County are having an issue with ballot return envelopes. The elections office told us today there have been several reports of those envelopes already being sealed when someone opened their initial ballot envelope. Daisy Caballero talked with an election official about how it happened and what to do if it happens to you.
That does sometimes happen. The moisture seals the return envelope shut. It's one of our top questions this week from voters.
Catherine McMullen is the county clerk in Clackamas County. She says this does happen, adding that the weather was a bit rainy on the days the ballots were mailed out this time around.
In the May primary, we had a really wet day that all the ballots were delivered, and we actually had a larger incidence of return ballot envelopes being shut.
And if you find yourself in this position, McMullen says you can cut the envelope open yourself, place your completed ballot inside, and seal it shut with tape.
Or you can come into the election office and request a new ballot that will come with a new envelope.
Keep in mind, if you choose to get a replacement ballot in the mail, you can have it mailed to you before October 31st.
Whenever you do get a replacement ballot, your first ballot is inactivated and then the second one becomes your active ballot. So there's no way that you can vote twice.
Now you can find all of these details and more at kgw.com. Lisa Caballero, KGW News.
Let's move to a statewide measure in Oregon on the ballot next month, Measure 116. If approved, it would amend the state's constitution to create an independent commission to set the salaries for some public officials. That includes governor, secretary of state, treasurer, attorney general, district attorneys, and lawmakers in Salem. Their pay has been a bit of a sticky issue, mostly because right now, lawmakers have the power to adjust their own salary, but few of them have had the political courage to raise their own pay. In fact, back in 2022, 3 Democratic lawmakers said they would not seek re-election because between hours and pay, they could no longer afford to serve in the state legislature.
Between bills, student loans, and 2 kids in daycare, I've never been able to stop working for my second job during session. So I dropped to part-time during session for my second job, which means that I work all the time. It places an enormous caregiving burden on my wife and my in-laws because I will turn around and continue working for my primary job through the weekend to catch up.
Now, you may remember there was a plan for a pay bump back then, but many lawmakers thought it appeared too self-serving and the plan went nowhere. So Measure 116 is a sort of workaround, allow an independent commission to look at the salaries of public officials and adjust them as they see fit. That would put Oregon in line with 22 other states who already do that. When it comes to lawmaker pay specifically, here's how Oregon stacks up. We're sitting right around the middle of the pack according to data from Ballotpedia, ranking 22nd with an average salary of around $35,000 a year for lawmakers. For reference, Washington sits at number 10, paying lawmakers around $61,000. New York is at the top, paying $142,000 annually. When it comes to our governor's salary, it's a different story. Oregon fares much worse compared to other states. The most recent data from Ballotpedia shows Oregon at 47th out of the 50 states, making $98,000 annually for the governor, roughly $18,000 above Maine, who has the country's lowest paid governor. Washington is way up in 6th place, paying over $187,000, and New York is again number 1 on this list, with the governor making $250,000 a year. Opponents of Measure 116 argue it would be an easy way for elected officials to give themselves a raise without the political risk. There's no requirement that the commission be bipartisan or nonpartisan, and few guardrails on who qualifies to be part of the commission. Earlier this month, Willamette Week recommended its readers to vote no to Measure 116, saying its biggest red flag is that once the commission makes a decision on pay, that's final. There's no review or appeal process, and Willamette Week calls that, quote, bad governance. So what do you think? Should Oregon lawmakers and elected officials like the governor be paid more than they are right now? Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail 503-226-5090. Let's cross the Columbia and focus on a few races in the state of Washington now. First, a look at a recent poll in the governor's race, since current Governor Inslee is not seeking re-election. This poll was done by Survey USA, commissioned by our sister station King 5, the Seattle Times, and the University of Washington's Center for an Informed Public. Just over 700 likely voters were asked who they would vote for. Half of those voters chose Democrat Bob Ferguson. Republican Dave Rickert received 34%, and the remaining 16% were undecided. Another issue that will appear on every Washington ballot will be Initiative 2117, which would repeal Washington's Climate Commitment Act and also prevent the state from making the biggest polluters pay for their carbon emissions. Earlier this month, the man behind that initiative squared off with the former state senator described as the architect of the Climate Commitment Act. Jim Nelson has the story.
We're at a tipping point of time. This program does work.
First of all, it was sold under false premises.
Former Washington State Senator Reuben Carlisle defending the Climate Commitment Act he championed. Hedge fund owner Brian Haywood, the driving force behind an attempt to repeal it. He argues it's costing the people of Washington too much, notably at the gas pump.
I can guarantee you that if we get rid of this flawed, grifting program, the price of gas will go down.
There's not one provision of the initiative that actually lowers gas prices at all. In any way.
Haywood is also looking to end the state's cap and trade or tax programs, which essentially allow the state to charge top polluters for carbon emissions and use revenue to fund projects. Carlisle pointed directly to $5.4 billion in wildfire prevention and transportation programs that help provide free access to public transit for kids and teens. But at its core, the former senator says it's about the environment.
It's the single most effective climate policy in the world. It works. The data's overwhelming.
Haywood claims the nearly 500,000 signatures collected for this initiative are the most in state history for any ballot measure. He admitted he doesn't have an alternative in mind, but insists he's open to climate-friendly conversations.
You can make a lot of dreams and make all these fairy promises, but the reality of what's actually happening doesn't seem to match it.
Up next on The Story, as promised, we'll take a break from politics to talk about the weather, specifically what winter could have in store for the Portland Metro, as well as the big ski areas that so many love nearby. A peek behind the curtain of Rod Hill's winter outlook with Mr. Rod Hill himself and myself when The Story returns. Welcome back. KGW meteorologist Rod Hill joins me now from the Weather Center. Rod, earlier today you published your winter weather outlook, a tall task, both on our website and our streaming app KGW+. We know your forecast is pretty popular for helping people prepare for this upcoming season. So I wanted to ask you, what are a couple of the key things people should know for this winter?
Well, let's start off. The number one thing people in Portland want to know, is it going to snow, right? Or if we have a big storm, will it be snow or ice? Do you remember this? Roll the tape from January of 2024. And remember, we had a storm that had just a little bit of snow to start, and then it turned to all sleet, and then we got hit with the second round that was all freezing rain. And one of the points of our winter outlook a year ago was to tell you that if we had a big storm, we believed it would be all ice. So we got that right. We'll see how much we can give you good information or not as we look forward from now all the way through March, kind of Portland's rainy / winter season, November into March is what I have here. But some conclusions for Portland that I have high confidence in this year. If it's a weak La Nina or a neutral year, so-called, I think it's going to be drier than last winter. Last winter, you may not remember, was actually wet. We were above normal in the precip department for Portland by 6.5 inches. So this year, for example, between November and March, we could be looking at maybe 20 inches of total precipitation, counting all the raindrops and any snow that falls, instead of 30. That's a noticeable difference. I think you'll notice it. Any big storms this year will be the opposite of last year. Last year, we just showed you it was ice. This year, I don't think so. It will be snow, which is so much better. I think we all agree. There's really not much confidence in the temperature department. This is huge. Last year, we made a big deal. In fact, Evan, you went up into the story on this Christmas week that we didn't think we'd have hardly anything on the ground up on Mount Hood. This year, no, I think it's a great Christmas week. 75-inch base at Timberline, 63 at Meadows, and 39 at Ski Bowl. So I know everybody hopes I am at least correct on that point, sir.
Yeah, and Rod, we were talking earlier today, and I thought it was fascinating to learn a little bit about your process. You know, this is a long time of a forecast out. How do you get to some of your projections here of what you expect for Portland, Mount Hood, and other areas?
Well, it all starts with the information from NOAA, which is the ENSO cycle. We're going to be La Nina, which is colder water temperatures than normal in the equatorial areas off of South America. El Nino is warmer water temperatures. Neutral is water temperatures are normal in terms of the climate average. So I start there, and then I go to actually the 10th of a degree of those water reports, and I go back through time and I find similar years that match those numbers. So this year I found 7 winters since 2000 that match the numbers, and here's the list. And one of those winters that really stands out is the winter of 2008-2009. That was the December of 2008, where we had 19 inches of snowfall in Portland and 10 inches was still on the ground Christmas Day, which is the record still for the amount of snow on the ground Christmas Day. There are other years in the same data set where we didn't hardly get any snow. So you start there and then you just keep whittling down, Evan, looking for any correlations that I can find that lead me to something else that leads me to a conclusion. And this year, I think the biggest conclusions are not as wet as last winter, total precip for Portland, and a good, healthy, earlier start to the Mount Hood ski season, sir.
That's brilliant. From water temperatures off of South America to the amount of snow and precipitation in Oregon. Really interesting. Thanks, Rod. Again, Rod's winter outlook is available to watch right now on KGW Plus, an extended version there as well, with Drew Carney fielding viewer and your own questions and Rod answering them to the best of his forecasting ability. All of that is available right now on our free streaming app, KGW Plus. Up next on The Story, we're taking a look at the upcoming race for president and how a small county in western Washington state is being called the last bellwether, thanks to its streak of picking the right presidential candidate for the past 4 decades. We'll hear from residents on why they think that is when The Story returns. Let's get back into politics to finish the show tonight, but on a more curious note, perhaps. Right now, most national polls have the race for the White House neck and neck. So pundits and the rest of us, of course, are looking for any indication that could tip the race one way or another. And it turns out the best predictor for the race is right here in the Northwest, as far northwest as you can get, perhaps in the lower 48. Drew Andre explains.
Clallam County is what's called a bellwether because it's the only county in the country that's voted for the winning candidate of every election for 40 years. In fact, that's true for all but 2 elections going back to 1920. If the election was a coin toss, Clallam County won it 23 out of 25 times. The chance of that, about 1 in 100,000. So what's the secret hidden in the most northwestern county in the lower 48? I talked to voters there about what's important to them and what it could tell us about the biggest race in the nation. What makes this county unique?
Lots of places to find beauty here.
We have the mountains, we have the ocean, got the perfect mixture of everything you can need.
And that's why we're here.
What do you think it says about Clallam County that it's the only one in the entire country that's correctly chosen the president every cycle since 1980?
Well, I would have to say that they just have good insight.
I think that's pretty remarkable. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of it.
It's a difficult question to answer or even fathom to figure out. That's why you're here.
From Reagan to Biden, a majority of Clallam County voters have picked the president. That's 6 Republicans, 5 Democrats. A streak unmatched by the other 3,142 counties in the U.S.
Dumbfounded and stumped as anyone else.
Hey guys.
We visited Rain Shadow Cafe in Sequim.
So it's the cheers of coffee, you know, the place where everybody knows your name.
Not quite a red city, not quite a blue one.
And you certainly see signs equally for everyone.
A town that votes like the color of its favorite flower.
Why do you think this area is this moderate melting pot?
Well, we have people here from a lot of places.
We have a lot of retirees here in Sequim.
But there's still those blue-collar roots.
Clallam County was built on the marine industry in Port Angeles, agriculture in Sequim, and logging in Forks.
You know, this was some of the largest timber in the country. It was out here on the Olympic Peninsula.
The archives at the North Olympic History Center give us a peek inside.
Deep history, yeah.
Executive Director David Brownell says the driver of the economy here has shifted over time.
You know, this was a big mill town, and so sequentially those mills have slowly shut down. You've seen a real growth, a continued growth in tourism.
The county's biggest towns are nestled between the Olympic Mountains and the Pacific Ocean. The county skews older and poorer than the national average. It's overwhelmingly white with a higher than average Native American community and a growing Latino population.
If you kind of put things on a map, it kind of trends from kind of purple in the east end of the county out to red out west. But there's a ton of exceptions to that.
As industries have shifted, their bellwether status hasn't.
Maybe they look at those issues that they care about more than any particular candidate or party.
Voting based on values and not just necessarily political alignment.
Of the remaining 19 bellwether counties since 1980, in 2020, all but Clallam picked Trump.
That's just amazing.
What would you say is your number one issue in this election?
The economy and just the way things are going. Everything is pretty expensive right now.
For us would probably be housing.
My number one issue is women's rights.
I'm very military oriented.
Affordable housing and childcare.
The right for women to choose.
What do you think the country could learn from Clallam County?
Oh gosh.
More caring, more kind, more generous, more giving.
And understanding that even if you don't agree with the person who lives next door to you, that doesn't make them a bad person. And that there's probably a lot more that you see eye to eye on.
How to slow down and enjoy life.
And I'm trying to think of what you're trying to think. What are we going to do this year?
That's the question on everyone's mind. And the fact that no one knows is why the nation is watching Clallam County.
But election stories can often produce a big sigh. It's great to see humanity in ones like that and all the different opinions. That's the end of our show tonight. Thank you for watching. Pat is set to be back with you tomorrow night. Hope you've enjoyed your time with me. In the meantime, The good stuff is coming your way next. Don't forget, you can stream the story on your own schedule, anytime, anywhere. Download the free KGW Plus app, available now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV, so you can catch Rod Hill's winter weather outlook as well as a bonus edition with your answers to your questions to the best of his ability. As we sit here tonight, we've got the Oregon Zoo looking great with colors in the sky. And also, in addition to that, Providence Park, where there's a playoff match tonight with the Portland Timbers and the Vancouver Whitecaps. Win and you're in, starting a best-of-3 series. We'll see how our Portland sports teams fare tonight.